Lovely. Guys, thanks so much for taking the time to come and chat this evening. Quick public service announcement before we do properly kick off. For anyone who's listening, one of the kind of key outward facing parts of the Poles and Cross calendar, as a lot of people know, is the Mystery Weekend. So we've had Mystery Weekend 1 and 2, massive successes in the last year or so. The last one taking place in winter, which was a different challenge, but it was super successful. We're kind of building year on year. Next one is in March, I believe, 6th till the 8th. Details will be coming out on the Instagram page, so keep your eyes peeled, and get yourself involved if you want to come and get involved with the crew up in the Lake District. It'd be mega. Without further ado, we're joined by Vinny and Benji. Vinny on the other side of the microphone for the first time, here to talk about his recent experience on the Montaigne Winter Spine. 268 miles, Vinny, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Give or take for navigational embarrassments, but
Not
yeah,
that there, not that there was any of that. So to kick off, for those who aren't too well read in on what the Spine is, can you give us a bit of a lowdown about the profile of the race and what it entails?
yeah. So there's a couple of different editions. So they run it in summer and winter, and then there's different distances as well. So the event I jumped onto was the winter Spain. So that runs early in January. This year kicked off on the 11th, and it's essentially up to a full week of movement along the Pennine Way, kicking off from Edale up to Kirkyetholm in Scotland. So there's a number of checkpoints, and you're essentially moving across the whole distance under your own steam. There's interim cut-offs, but you've got up to that full week to get from one end to the other, managing yourself as you go. So it's a mega event. In terms of numbers, it's not a huge event, so I'm sure the places for the main event were limited to about 150 plus. I think there might have been like a few elite places on top of that and what have you. But in terms of order of magnitude and numbers, it's not a big event. But I think that probably feeds into um, one of the things I think it's probably most famous for is the experience for the runners and how well managed it is and how much of a personal event it is. It's fantastic.
Yeah, that's absolutely awesome. And what are the entry requirements for it, if any?
That's a really good question. I should have brushed up on that beforehand. There were entry requirements, so there's a question on the entry form about relevant experience that you've had. I can't recall precisely what it is, but I think I dropped into there having successfully completed the likes of the Lakeland 100 and the UTS 100 as well, albeit the winter. The winter side of the Spain event is it's completely different beast to anything I'd done before. And then, any sort of fair weather, even in the worst sort of days in the mountains in the summer, it's just a completely different animal.
That's epic, absolutely epic. And is it kind of first come first served, or do they like look through applications and like vet people effectively?
So there is a vetting process, so you can't just say, well, I walk the dog daily, so I reckon I'll be able to crack it. So they do go through the applications, but assuming that you everything that you've put down is appropriate, it's pretty much first come, first serve. So the entry for the race itself, when the entries go live, that's well renowned for it being, takes like a handful of minutes for the race to sell out. So I was sat at home, ready to go with my finger on the mouse. I had my other half. She was down in Catterick at work. She was ready to go as well, just hitting click and refresh, trying to get through to the entry page. And I think I got through and I was screaming down the phone by saying, I'm in, I'm
Yeah,
in. I'm through the t-shirt size selection. I'm in.
yeah, yeah. That's epic. Um,
With,
so
sorry, Ben, with that
go
Vinny,
for it.
is there a cut-off time to when you've got to pay? Or do you have to pay up front and then if you don't get in, you get your refund? Or if you get a spot like you said you did, do you have 24 hours, 48 hours to pay and then you'll lose your spot if you don't pay it in time? Because I know there are
Oh,
that start
aye.
with that.
trying to think back now. I think there was a small payment straight away, and then because it's obviously it's quite a significant cost for the race. I'm sure it was about 12 or £1,300 total, but you've got a number of months to pay off the balance. So that runners portal is quite well set up. So I think it was a small upfront payment, and then you go through the portal, and it tells you there's a list there in your runner's profile as to everything that you need to do. So it's like, suggest you get insurance to cover you because it's an expensive race if you can't compete. Make your final payment by this date, maps are here, all of that sort of stuff. So yeah, I think there was a small upfront payment for it, probably to the order of, I think it might be about 150 quid or something, but I can't recall now.
Yeah, fair. So you can Klarna it all the way through then, happy with that.
Yeah.
Sounds of Vinny like not the first person in the group to do the spine. Obviously, like Tony did it the other year. Was it a mixture of him completing it and being the first in the group to do it that motivated you to do it, or were there other motivations for getting started on it?
It's an interesting one. I think the events that I've done, I never set out thinking I'm just going to go bigger and bigger and bigger. But every time I've cracked something, I kind of thought there's an element of it wanting to explore my limits. So like I'd crack something and think, all right, I've cracked that. I can do it. I need to find something else. So kind of went there's all sorts of stuff we've done as a group, like the Poles and Crocs, but in terms of organised races, Lakeland 50, and then the UTS as well. I think the UTS 100k might have been first. I had a crack at the UTS 100 and DNF the first time around, so went back and cracked that. Did the Lakeland 100, and it just kept stepping up. And the spine was something I'd had an eye on for some time. So when Tony cracked it and we spoke about Dave Venus had said, "Do you guys want to interview Tony?" I think that was like he just cracked the race. The entries were coming out the week after. I was like, I absolutely want to interview him. Yes,
Yeah.
100%. So we did that interview, and then I think like a few days after that, the entries opened. So that all just had me super excited, and hearing Tony talk about it just got me to the place where I was like, yeah, this is absolutely something that I want and need to do.
Yeah, that's mega, mate. That's mega. And like, I think there's two parts I kind of want to talk about in terms of your preparation for it. Firstly, your kind of physical preparation, which is the obvious part of it, which from talking to you seems to be not what I had in mind. You seem to have like had more of like a chilled kind of volume build up to it. But then I also want to chat to you about your like the mental preparation as well. So I think we'll start off with the easy bit, quote unquote. How did you like physically prepare for something of this sort of magnitude?
So I've got a coach, a guy called Andy Berry, and so he programmed all of the coaching, and um, the training element of it kind of took the approach of um, doing the least specific stuff furthest away from the event, and then sort of going through those adaptations and then leaning into more specific stuff closer to the event, just with sprinkles of that like um, least specific stuff later on. So like for example, very early in the program for the spine, I had VO2 max working there because clearly there's seldom many, if any, bits within the race where you're sort of hitting a real high intensity. And then it just built through to like you see, a lot of volume and specific stuff. So things like stepper sessions, which progressed from just stepper sessions into stepper sessions with the full kit on my back, or at least the full weight. So people in the gym looking at you as this guy off his head here with his backpack on and flasks and everything. And yeah, I think training wise, I probably got to 12 to 15 hours a week, but that was all of the program training sessions, like the movement related stuff, the running and the light and the stepper sessions, then lifting sessions on top of that, and mobility as well. So I think one thing that I've done more of going into this race than any other is a whole load of mobility, because even the smallest niggles over that kind of distance can become a big problem. So not saying I got that perfect, but it seems to have worked well.
Hmm. Yeah, nice. What did your like? We're a group of like balancing lifting and running, or lifting and another endurance sport, be that swimming or cycling or all three. How did you balance the like lifting side of it and the running side of it when you were preparing?
Lifting side of it was usually two sort of dedicated lifting sessions a week. I found as I was getting closer to the event, I felt like I needed to do mobility, so I was putting other stuff around that as well. But that was just stuff like static stretching. For those niggles that I did have, just bits of management work, not loads, but just every day making sure I was working on those bits and pieces, um, just to try and keep on top of them and make sure they were in the best position possible. But yeah, it was like two dedicated lifting sessions a week, and that was heavily based around um, squats. Always squats as the main fundamental of the program, and then lots and lots of single leg movements, and then obviously just core and upper body fitting around that. Probably quite critical for the spine, I think, was the core work as well, just because I've heard all of these horror stories about this ultra lean that people get when they're fatigued or exhausted or whatever it is, and they get this lean off to one side where
Hmm.
whatever goes wrong with that core. And again, that seems to have worked. So yeah, just quite common sense in terms of the stuff building into what you think you'd need for the race, really.
Yeah, that's epic. Heavy lifting or
I was heavy, yeah, heavy lifting. So things like 3x5s and moving through to 5x5s up to about I think 10 weeks before the race. I progressed through, and then that moved through into volume. So 5x10, 5x12, just building, so dropping the weight, and just yeah, lots and lots of volume at relatively lower weights. Just all of the volume within the last sort of 8 weeks, probably. Just yeah, lots and lots of volume, lots of horrendous squat sessions.
yeah. By volume back squats and volume front squats, I think are my least favourite of all the programming that Leon has me on.
Yeah,
Cardio and heavy barbell all at the same time.
yeah, it's just pure
Seems a,
anxiety. You'd
yeah,
think
yeah,
think the heavy work would be a lot of anxiety, and it is, but when you're doing high volume of back squats, even at a relatively lower weight, it's a stress.
yeah, 100%. And then obviously spent about 12 to 15 hours of physical prep. What did your kind of mental prep look like for it?
Um, Mental prep. So it tied in with the training, I think. So the it's probably 10 weeks running into the event. I had for my long run on either usually a Friday night or a Saturday morning, that was full kit and full weight as well. So not just all of the kit, but fluids and food, or at least enough fluids to make up the weight of the food, so that when I rocked up on race day, that wasn't going to be a shock to the system.
On the way,
Um,
what was the weight that you was moving with?
So total ended up being 10 kilos. So that was pack, all kit. I had a waist pack as well, supplementing that with all of my snackies in it. Fluids, poles as well attached to that pack. So that was gloves in the pocket. So that I kind of weighed that with everything all in. So other than the clothes and I think the jacket I was wearing, that was full weight. Um, probably could have went lighter, I think, in retrospect. And I think if I was ever to go back and do it again, I might try and go lighter. But yeah, 10 kilos.
Where would you cut that weight from? Just out of interest, we're getting into like proper kit testing now, which I'm sure we'll come on to a little bit later. But like, where would you cut that weight from? Because the big ticket items are water and food, right?
They
So
are.
what would you cut out?
I think so I had some what I'd probably class as comfort items in there. So I went for a slightly warmer sleeping bag than I
Yeah.
needed. My sleeping strategy was to always try and do it at the checkpoints because aside from anything else, there's all the additional time of getting your bag out, getting your roll mat out, getting your bivy bag out, getting squared. If your feet and everything's soaked, and you've got to strip all that off before you get into your bag if you want to have any semblance of a sort of decent sleep. So it was like get to the checkpoint if you can to kip. The bag's there for comfort. I only pulled it out once on course, and I could have got away with a lighter bag. So there's definitely way to be saved there. I had a lightweight thermos flask, but that was still additional weight. So I was carrying dehydrated meals with me. I used them a couple of times with the knowledge on the course now. I think I'll get away without those. So you cut the flask. What else? What else? What else? The mandatory kit has micro spikes in there. Now, it was super slippy, but my strategy with those was to only break them out when I absolutely needed to for the concern of changing the pressure points on my feet and
Mhm.
causing any issues with, if I had some people had them on for significant chunks of the race, and I was like yo-yoing with them, and I know people had issues with like them causing bother with their feet and what have you. So whether or not that was an unnecessary concern of mine, I only broke them out once, and they were a
Mhm.
heavy bit of kit. So I had Catulas, so I'd probably see if there was a lighter weight version. I know I think Catula do a lighter weight version now, so that's probably three items straight away where I would cut back. Um, I had a full 2 liters of fluid pretty much the whole way around. I'd
Mhm.
probably cut that back to a liter, and I think if anything, the food was probably the one thing which was pretty much cock on. The first between the two first checkpoints, I didn't eat all of that, and I think that was a mistake. I realized that I needed to be caning the food to keep myself feeling right, and for the between the last three checkpoints, I just ate all of my scran plus anything I could get my hands on going round as well. So the food was probably right. Is there anything else? My synthetic down was pretty lightweight. I did take a full mountain waterproof jacket. Think that was the right move. Um, there was a bit of rain, and I stayed fully dry throughout that, and that was that was a huge benefit. Yeah, I don't know the pack itself as well. I went for the Osprey Talon Velocity, which is a 30 liter full hip belt, so really, really comfortable for carrying the 10 kilos. I found that when I tried some of my running packs with the 10 kilos in, they were just chafing on my long runs.
Mhm.
So that was after a few hours. But that velocity pack is about 900 odd grams just by itself. So
Yeah.
at least double the weight of a running pack. So if I could get that overall weight down, probably go for a lighter pack, I reckon, as well.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Nice. So I guess, yeah, part of that mental prep was just kind of having run-outs with your full kit and like make sure you were
Yeah.
confident in your kit, and you just knew that when you were on the start line that when you stepped off you were going to be in good shape, like admin
Yeah.
squared. Were there any like mantras that you kind of took into the race? Was there any visualization you did? Like it's a race of such magnitude, right? Like you could be on your feet for 7 days effectively, which is kind of unfathomable for most people. Um, how did you kind of mentally prep for that?
Um, so you've mentioned there admin squared away. There was a huge amount of planning went into it. I had went over the kit, went over it again. I've got so in my kit bag, in my drop bag, I had the laminated mandatory kit list and medical kit there, so that I knew that I had that all times, so there weren't because there was a lot of kit checks went on to make sure people either hadn't dumped intentionally or forgotten to pack anything. So that was squared, and then I had laminated checklists for what to do at each kit point. So when I was each checkpoint, so when I was rolling in exhausted and unable to think, I just went down the list, because you spend an inordinate amount of time just faffing around in your kit bag.
Mhm.
Like I had a tube of deep heat, and I packed it after the first checkpoint into my running pack. I got to the second checkpoint. I was exhausted because I hadn't slept from the start. Looked through my bag, could not find it. Emptied my drop bag, couldn't find it. Went back in my running pack. There it was, exactly where I'd packed in the first place. So, and it's like that for everybody. Um, Mantras. There was one. There was somebody else on this call had messaged Benji and said to me, "Go be a savage." And I just had that playing in my head the full race when I was hanging out, when I was struggling, just kept thinking that, just go be a savage all the time on replay over. And that, it's odd, it's a really simple, short one, but I just had it there. Thinking about that, thinking about, the rest of the lads in the poles and croc groups and all the things they're going out and doing and smashing, and wanting to go and do something that I put my own stamp on. So thanks for that, Benji. That was mega, honestly, mega helpful.
Works for me, so I'm glad that it works for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mate, that's absolutely epic. So you kind of done all your prep, you've got to the start line. Can you just give us like a blow by blow of how the race went and how it unfolded for you?
Yeah, certainly. So I had a I got into EDL on the Saturday for registration, fairly stress free. I was mega excited. I think I might have sent a photo of the Poles and Crocs WhatsApp of the snow on the hills coming into EDL. It was bright sunshine. I was like, one of the things I was worried about, ironically, is not getting the spine conditions, because one of the things you hear about is like snow on the hills and it being heavy going. And I'd almost thought if I hadn't had some of that, I'd have missed out on that experience. So coming into Edale, it was all, just immaculate snow on the hills, absolutely incredible, getting really excited. I registered, had digs about 700 meters away from the start line. So aside from lugging 30 kilos of kit through to there, I had a digs to myself. So went through my kit one last time, had as good a night's sleep as you can before something like that. Rolled out in the morning, got to the start line, got my tracker fitted, and then Nuge lives in Edale, so he came through to the start with a bacon sandwich and a brew for us. So I had somebody there with me. I put my other half from coming through and driving down in case the weather was that bad for like driving over the hills and all of that with the kids. So Nuge came through and saw me off, so that was incredible. And yeah, then there, and that's a year of prep, and you're on the start line, and I was feeling strong. Felt like all of the prep had went exactly as planned. I'd had a strong training block, final training block before the race, so it was just super exciting. And then you're off. So you're running towards the Kinder Plateau, up out of Edale, loads of snow on the deck. You're like, this is epic. You go up Jacob's Ladder, there's photographers dotted about, so it just smiles and everything. It was just epic running out of Edale. And then we got onto the tops, and it hit home how bad the snow was higher up. So I didn't have to nav too much at that point, because I fell in behind a group of guys that were moving about my pace, and they seemed to know where they were going, where you just couldn't see the path. So it was just like quick checks on my watch to make sure that, I'm not following somebody that's going off in the wrong direction. But yeah, the snow was fairly epic. So I pulled in behind a group of kids that were just out walking, teenagers, and they were walking through this cutting, and I just tried to step round them because they were moving pretty slowly, and I must have stepped off the path just straight into like waist deep snow, like right the way in. Must have been a bog underneath or whatever. And I was like, oh wow, this is like this is how epic the race is going to be. So, yeah, the whole of the first day was like that. It was mega slippy. When you managed to get on the paving slabs on the Pennine Way, there was black ice. You couldn't tell what was ice and what wasn't. There was a lot of slipping about. I'd kind of taken that mental decision not to wear the spikes. So there was loads of slips, loads of falls. Everybody was over. And yeah, so got through the first day with quite a bit of epic running in, really enjoyed it. But by the time it sort of got to nightfall, my hip flexors and quads were they just felt absolutely exhausted from all of the slipping about and what have you, and working through the snow. So I'd taken the decision to push through the first CP. I thought that I could probably relatively comfortably get the second checkpoint at Hawes, which is about 108 miles, uh, without too much stress about sleeping. In retrospect, that was uh, that was probably the incorrect tactic. I mean, you take your decisions, but got through the first CP. I was in there an hour and 20 minutes. Um, I'd planned to be in there an hour, but just by the time you've sorted through all your kit, it was busy in there. The food was in a separate building, so I went and ate again, had some pudding on top of that, went back, like clean socks and everything on, and off I went. Like I was already slightly behind my schedule, and then moving through the night into the first day, and I got to so I was moving slowly by that point. Sorry, the second day, I was moving slowly by that point, and I got to um, Malin Cove, and I just remember thinking at that point I was not enjoying a single second of it. So that, like, in all honesty, my obviously with having just continued to move my hip flexors and my quads hadn't had any sort of a reset, and I was just death marching, and that was the whole of the second day. So through the Hawes, so that took me, let's think, up round Pennygent. I didn't get right onto the top of Pennygent because there was a safety diversion up there for the wind and the ice. So kind of you get up to the top where you go through the gate to cut up there from Horton, and then you had to cut across the hill and back down. And I got into Horton, and there was an interim checkpoint there, and I was chatting to somebody, and I'd said, right, how far is it over this Cam High Road into Hawes? And they were like 7 miles, and this is my own fault for not checking my own map, but I was like, Roger, 7 miles, I can crack that, and it was about double that. Like, so I got about an hour and a half in. I'm like, I must nearly be there, and I got my phone out to check the GPS, like the electronic map, and I looked where I was. I was like, no, surely not. Surely not. And you're doing that in your head. You're like, that can't be right. And you're looking and you know it's right. And you're like, that is right. I was like, you're a moron. You know to check your own map. So
You sure it wasn't Leon in
yeah,
the checkpoint? That's his kind of crap.
yeah. You're nearly there, fella. You're nearly there.
Five
So sorry, go on.
5K left. Come on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%, 100%. So that whole second day was I, I say this with kind of like a pinch of salt. It was the hardest thing I've had to do this kind, like mentally, the hole I was in. Clearly, things like I've been in darker places in my life where things have gone wrong, like family deaths and all of that. But for that, going into an event and doing a race, that was the deepest, darkest hole I have ever been in, bar none. And at no point did I think I am going to give up, but I was completely convinced in my mind, given how my legs and hip flexors, the whole of the bottom half of my body felt, I was like, I cannot see me being able to continue moving at a pace that will allow me to make the cut-offs. So it just got me into like problem solving mode. I was like, right, what am I going to do here? And I looked and I was like, right, I'm moving really slowly at the moment, but I am well ahead of the cut-offs at the moment. So I'll get into hose. I plan to have I think 4 hours there, 4 hours, 3 hours sleep. I was like, I'm going to push that out. You're allowed 8 hours in the checkpoints. So I was like, I'm going to push that out. I'm going to have 5 hours sleep, see if I can get maximum reset on my legs. Eat as much as I can possibly stomach before I go to bed and after I go to bed, and just see how I feel when I come out of the checkpoint. So I got in there, sat down, I ate. There was people, the volunteers in there, they were talking about people, various people DNFing. There was a guy sat next to me in there as I was in there. He was like, look, I can't go on. People were like dropping all over because between two checkpoints, you've got 108 miles and it was heavy going. But I ate, I squared all my kit away. I got a shower and got clean, dry kit on. Got my spare bag out of my drop bag, got into the scratcher, had the 5 hours, and I woke up and I opened my eyes and I was like, sat up and like got up and everything. I was like, oh, holy shit, my legs feel like brand new. Like I genuinely could not believe it. So got up, got squared, and I think I got out of there in like 7 hours and 55. Like the guy was like, right, we need to get you out of here now. So they do a kit check before you leave the CP to make sure that you've got everything that you need. And I was out of there and just moving down the road smiling, like I can't believe how I feel compared to a few hours ago. So so um that was just early doors in the morning. By the time I got to the foot of the first hill, it was starting to get light. There was a guy that I ended up finishing the race with called John Ferris, Texas John, guy from Texas, obviously, and he was going up this hill in front of me, and talking to him afterwards, he looked back and he was like, "Oh, this guy's trying to take me," and I'm looking up there and I see him start accelerating. I'm like, this guy's trying to pull away from me. And the dude say run your own race, but I'm like, all right, it's like this. I get the poles out, and he stopped to talk to the guy out walking his dog for a sec, and I took him, and he says afterwards I was talking, he's like, oh, this motherfucker, he's thinks he can take me. So we yo-yoed for a bit, and then I've had it in my head, that's it. I'm power hiking here. I know if I power hike at this pace, I can finish this race. I'm not getting into the same hole I got into yesterday. That would be stupid to get there again when I'm in a position now where I can get round the race. So I was moving towards Tan Hill, and by this point, I was in areas that I'd recce'd quite well. So I got to Tan Hill. He'd gotten in front of me, and he was speaking to him later. He decided to have a stop there. There was no safety team at Tan Hill. They must have popped off for a second, and I just went into the pub, got 2 glass bottles of Coke. I was like, "Hey, you got Coke?" And they were like, "Oh, well, we've got Pepsi Max on tap." I was like, "No, no, I need
That's not the
sugar.
question I asked. Yeah.
Give me the Coke." 2 bottles of Coke, a packet of crisps, and a toffee crisp as well. And I came
Really?
out of there, and I was going down. So you go down from there across Slightholme Moor, which is super boggy, but I'd recce'd it, and I knew there was a line across where you can kind of like run most of it. And I was coming across there, and the sun had came out. It had been lashing it down earlier in the day. Sun came out, and I was like, "Feel good here." Like I could run. I had the tunes on. I was like, I could run here. And I was like, no, 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 no. You're not running. You're not running. That would be stupid. And the next thing I know, I'm running and I'm cruising. I'm like, this feels really good. Like I'm moving here. Like this is awesome. And that was most of the rest of the day. So I just stuck to like running the flats and the downs, walking the ups, and it just like that third day. Um, I think I had tears that third day just before that coming down into Thwaite because I was so locked in my mind the day before that I wasn't going to physically be able to get round, and I felt like I'd been that close to almost quitting. Essentially, like in my mind, I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. And I just thought about all the lads watching and sending messages and what have you, and sort of willing me on to get round. And the kids at home and my lass sort of messaging and ringing and saying, you can do it. And thinking that I got into that kind of space, I just like had a bit of a like breakdown, and I came around the corner on the road into Thwaite. I just sorted myself out, and there's a safety team. They're like, "Are you all right, fella?" And I'm like, "Aye," and you could tell he wasn't convinced. Like, totally sound, aye, mate. But yeah, so from that point there, I was completely locked in to I'm absolutely 100% getting round this if I need to crawl around it. So um yeah, shortly after that, I think you come over the hills there, and you come down into Middleton on Tees, and then along to Langdon Beck, where the checkpoint is. There's a several miles run along the river there. That was another death march, but I got into the checkpoint. Um, Kylan, I saw Danny. Danny was there on course at Milton on Tees with his dog, and I'm coming down the hill, and I'm like, oh, in a second, I recognize that dog, and that's Danny there with his hood up. And I saw Kylan, Louise at the checkpoint as well. And just from there, I was like, right, I'm going to have some level of sleep at every checkpoint, whether that's an hour, 30 minutes, or whatever, because I think that has such a valuable impact in terms of how your body feels and your mental state as well. So I did that. So you come out of there, and you've got to cross a lot of greasy rocks and up a section called Cauldron Snout around Walkup, where like all the military training estates and what have you are. Um, I ended up getting chatting to so that Texas John and I had been yo-yoing, and we got chatting, and we're talking about going across Crossfell later on in the day and how bad the conditions were supposed to be across there. So we'd agreed to go across together, and we were so evenly paced that we ended up just spending the rest of the race together. Like while they're chatting, it was like, look, if you want to go off, fine. Equally, if I feel like going off and you're moving too slowly, I'll do that. It's a race, but let's stick together while we're moving at the same pace. Um, so that was it. And I almost feel a bit guilty in spending the race with him. We just seem to have an absolutely awesome time for the rest of it. So we'd heard the checkpoint staff and people in the village in Dufton saying how horrendous it was up on Crossfell, like total whiteout, and people were like, it's disgusting up there. It was horrible. We went out up over there, and it was like the Arctic, and we just had an awesome day out. It was absolutely incredible. We're moving across the frozen bogs, and your feet's going in water in places, and we just had a right good time. And then so that brought us down the other side toward the checkpoint at Alston. So Felix there. So that was more morale as well. And after Alston, then uh, you're moving towards Bellingham, and all of that just felt a bit like sort of home turf. So you got Hadrian's Wall. We got the weather there. The weather was amazing, And whilst we're working hard getting across there, it was just incredible views. There was photographers on there. There was people that were walking the dogs. Like all like knew what was going on. They're wishing you well, and just had like an absolutely incredible time of it because the weather was so good. So it felt lucky. And yeah, so you moved through Bellingham towards Burness. So we came out of Bellingham in the middle of the night. We had a bit of a drama with trackers there. So John had had his tracker removed at the checkpoint to charge it, and it said mine was working okay and had enough battery. And we got about 2 miles up the road from the CP, and my phone went. And I mean, this is a testament to the staff and how well they monitor everybody. They were like, "Are you 254?" I was like, "Yeah." They're like, "Right, your tracker's not working, but the guy that you're with, are you with? I think his number was 149. Are you with 149?" I was like, "Yeah." They're like, "His tracker, he's left it here." So they drove two new trackers out of us. So we just had to get warmers on and sit for half an hour while they came out. Um, so we ended up with the time back for that, which was like 36 minutes. But other than that, we had a stop at Burness. So there was one of the interim checkpoints there where you're allowed to stay for 30 minutes. So we went in, had hot wets and a bit of scran, and then there's a church there. So that was where I broke out my bag. We had 30 minutes in the church there, and then you're off over the hills, sort of running parallel to Otterburn and moving over the Cheviots. Again, we had an absolutely glorious day there. The bogs were frozen solid for us, but the weather was absolutely incredible. Like I was just stripped down to the technical top at one point because we were moving quite quickly and the weather was so warm. And I think we were at foot two, which is like over by the Shill at the back end of the Cheviot range, by nightfall. And then once you've climbed that last hill, the Shill, you're down into Kirkyetholm. So we had a canny little run down into there, and that was pretty much it. That's like a few days of running in a nutshell. Um, but yeah, just an incredible experience, absolutely mind blowing.
Here's something for you, Vinny. So circling back to Hawes, where you said you got in, and like there were loads of people spanking in. Obviously, listening to what you've said, I know which direction you went in, but that can affect someone in two different ways. Like everyone's saying, "Oh, I'm done. I'm rapping. I'm DNFing." That could get into your head, and you said you weren't feeling great yourself anyway. You could have then gone, "Well, if everyone else is rapping, fuck it, I'll rap." Or do you look at that and go, a bit like a Goggins quote here, I'm taking their souls now. They're all rapping, and I'm going to fucking go out and carry on and get this boxed off, which is obviously what you did. Did you find that affected you in any way in what they were saying?
Um, I think I don't think my mindset was quite as aggressive of like being like, oh yeah, taking souls here, but there was definitely an element of these guys, almost a little bit of like sadness really looking at this guy sat next to me, and I thought I didn't say anything, but I did think because he'd already DNF'd, he'd spoken to staff, it was done. It's like, mate, you've getting to the CP, you're here, you're well ahead of cut off, you've got time for a reset, and then you can go out again and see how you feel. But there's definitely an element of this is where the pack starts to thin out a bit, and this is where I'm going to um this is where I'm just going to push through.
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah, I think another point that I pulled out as well. Obviously, when you talk about going across Crossfell with Texas John, I knew brother. A lot of people will go out in like horrendous weather and they'll see the conditions are rubbish and they'll go like non-verbal, internal, not enjoying it. But like talking to lads, especially in our group, but then like reading about the likes of like your Shackletons and stuff like that. Like there's a way to reframe that hardship and that weather and you've definitely got it in spades, given what you've just said with John. Is that something that you kind of prepared for beforehand? Is that something you've kind of got that comes naturally to you from being out in all elements, like helping out on bobs and all that kind of stuff? Yeah,
I think the weather was something that genuinely I was looking forward to because that's the way the spine race is sold. And definitely, there's a big element of being out with it in it with all of the lads, training in it. You know, it doesn't really matter what the weather is. You go out and train on the basis that you can't go up on race day and think, I really fancy this actually.
But, I've just had a flashback. I think it was the Christmas do, Vinny, and you'd gone out the night, I think on the Friday, across the Buttermere.
Yeah,
Weather was fucking horrendous.
I didn't want to do that.
I remember you saying, I've got to do this because there's going to be points in the race where the weather is going to be like this and I need to get comfortable being in it.
I mean, that particular session was so valuable because aside from the mental aspect of being out in the weather, I went out that night, I think, in just a running shell, and I started
yeah,
off in just winter tights with no waterproof pants on, and it started to come in drizzling, and I didn't put the waterproof pants on until my tights were wet, and then I started to feel my core temperature going down, and I was like, "You've messed up here." So that right, because I don't ever normally run in waterproof pants. I know it's a bit of a joke with the group, but generally speaking, if you're moving quickly enough, you'll be staying warm. But yeah, the lessons from that were one, I was taking a full mountain Gary for the for the spine, irrespective of how quick I thought I was going to be moving, and two, waterproof pants as soon as you think you're going to start getting wet. So started the race without them on, but then as soon as it started to rain, because the weather was like between the tops and the bottoms, you had snow up here and raining down there. So yeah, the Gary pants were straight on and then they stayed on for the rest of the race. But yeah, I mean, the weather the weather wasn't really a factor because it's what you sign up for.
yeah, that's epic. It really reminds me of I don't know if you've watched the documentary about Jasmine Paris prepping for Barkley, and she is, I think it's midwinter. I think she lives in the Peak District or like Northern England somewhere. I'm not exactly sure where she lives, but it's like her alarm goes off at like 1 in the morning, and like it's you can hear the like rain and snow like battering a window, and her husband's like. Surely, like you're not going out on this. Surely, like you've got to draw a line here. And she's just like, no, I'm going, gets out of bed, like gets the dog prepped, like takes the dog out, runs, and she just goes out on the fells and runs from like 1 in the morning till like 6 in the morning.
Mega.
Comes in, has a shower, has breakfast, takes the kids to school, then goes and works like a full day, and then sleeps for 5 hours, gets up and does it again in like howling conditions. It's like it's just reframing that hardship and reframing the weather, right? It's such a valuable skill.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I rate that. I've had that same conversation. I remember sticks in my mind, probably last year now. It might not even been spine training, but it was like howling wind and rain. And our Megan was round for tea one night, and she was like, "Dad, you're not seriously going out in this." And I was like, "Could stay in, couldn't I? But that's not going to pay the bills."
Yeah.
You'll know on race day whether or not you've put all the training in.
Yeah, 100%. And I think I'm just mega inspired by you, Vinny. 100%. I'm inspired by everyone in the group massively. I do think of everyone when it's like howling up here, west coast of Scotland, it gets pretty wild, wet and wild up here. Um, but I also think like there's storms kicking about, and there's like kids going out and playing in the playground, and I'm like, if kids can go out and play football in like jumpers. And I'm like, oh, do I put an extra pair of gloves on or like an extra hat on? I was like, there are kids playing football in this. Like, just fucking put your big boy pants on and go for a run. Do you know what I mean?
100%. That's how I
Yeah,
Jacob. I'm like this morning, like full on storm coming in. You wearing a coat for school? Do I have to? Like,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
just don't care about it.
Yeah, I think if you can be somewhere between the two, that's probably like the perfect circle at the center of
Yeah.
the Venn diagram, isn't it? No, that's epic. And like, what were the emotions like coming down into Kirk Yethorm at the end?
Oh, incredible. So there was a big competition because I was running with John, and there was a guy, there was an Italian guy, and he was a bit of a mover, like, and he came past us on the Cheviots, and then as we were starting to bimble down, like we got over that last hill, and I was like, look, right, we can run from here. Um, no worries about us blowing ourselves out. It's however many miles to get in, but we're on the downhill now, so we're bimbling down, and he must have saw our head torches or something because he started to move off away from us, and John was like, should we just push on a bit and see if we can catch him up here because he's pushing on, and we didn't catch him, mind, but then at the end we had that time credit in the bank, so we ended up placing above him anyways,
Oh,
which
happy
was
with that.
I was a total see off for him and a shame to be fair because he put a load of effort in at the end. But that was just a little bit of fun and a little bit of competition and just what we hit timing wise. It had been perfect. We'd had the mega weather on the Cheviot. I was just buzzing to be out up there. I felt like really proud. This like American is here, seeing the Cheviot in the middle of winter, but in its best light. We saw the Cheviot goats. We'd seen a broken Spectre out there as well, which was pretty special. And then we're just getting down into dark, but in the dark, but it was early enough where everybody was still stood around. My other half was there with the kids, and Louise and Kyle were there, and Danny as well. And it wasn't so late that they weren't allowed to cheer, so we got like clapped in and cheered in, and we ran in together, and it was just a bit of relief as well, like having the kids there. One of my main motivations when I've done all of the bigger races has been, I always say to the kids and anybody that'll listen to me, to be honest, like I'm not an incredible athlete at all, and certainly not natural. But if I can do this stuff, anybody that wants to put the work in can. Like I say to the kids, you can absolutely do this stuff. And so just getting to the finish and being lucky enough to without any snags or injuries which could have pulled me out without any, you can fall and break something and not get round, and it's not necessarily anybody's fault, it's just the way it is. I just felt really lucky and glad to get there and for the kids to see that. So there's like definitely an element of relief and probably hunger as well, like get me some more scran.
Was it John that cracked a handstand at the end? Was that
Aye, that was him. That's his thing. So I was chatting to him about that because he'd done that on Hadrian's Wall as well for one of the photographers, and he used to be a competitive gymnast, so he's got like a mega background. And just chatting with him, he's done the Moab 240, done all sorts of stuff, and I so that was him cracking the handstand.
Absolute lunatic.
Yeah, for certain. I was like, I ain't doing no handstands, mate. I'm sorry, I'm barely keep myself upright as it is. So.
Yeah, yeah. How did he say it compared to like Moab and stuff like that? Obviously, two
Um,
completely different climates, right? So there's that. But how did he
yeah,
say it compared?
different gravy, man. Different gravy. Like everybody jokes about the UK bogs, but that was a big element of it. It was yeah, for certain completely different races to most of the American ones was what he was saying. He says one of the key things he was saying was the American trails all tend to be beautifully manicured and what have you, whereas here you're like, there's my GPX, that's where I'm going. Ain't no fucking trail there, like that's just bogs and puddles and
Yeah, yeah,
babies' heads everywhere. Like introducing the term babies' heads, he was like, "What are you talking about? Like these huge tufts of grass that you are tripping over, that's what they are." So yeah, he was like, It's completely different and a different challenge entirely."
Yeah, true. I completely agree with that. It echoes so much. I've never really run that much in America before, but I just remember on Benji's double, like doing leg three reverse, and it's like 1 meter viz, and he's literally following like the backs of my trainers, basically, just literally dead reckoning on a compass in like one
Yeah,
meter viz, and I'm just like, I really fucking hope Steel Fell just pops out of the mist in about 500 meters like that, and we're just in like knee deep bog like the whole way down, and I'm just like, I really, really hope we're going. And Benji's behind me like, Ben, are we going the right way, mate? As if he knows the direction to go in. Like I don't even know the direction I'm going. I'm just
yeah,
trusting
yeah.
that my fucking compass is pointing the right way. Yeah, I come. It's such an adventure. I love the UK for that. The UK scene for that. It's epic.
Well, I mean,
Um,
Scotland's probably, I've not done loads in Scotland, but I've heard Scotland's worse again, as in there just is no path.
Nah, it's mental. Like the where the map says there's a path, there's nothing. It's just featureless. And where there's nothing, there's like the M20 on the map. There's like the M25 in real life. It's absolutely mental. I think the mountains are just way more committing than like the Lake District for sure. Like I was up on the hill on Sunday doing a bit of winter mountaineering, on Saturday, sorry, and it was like a 4 mile, 4.5 mile walk in, and it was just baby's heads with rivers running between them the whole way up, like like kind of a shooting track through an estate, and then it was like ages to get to the actual quarry where the gully was, and then yeah, we got up this like pretty decent gully, and then we got onto the top, and it was just like complete whiteout, and I think we touched a path when we came down the other side, and it was just kind of like rough rocks. It wasn't really like a path. Do you know what I mean? Um, yeah, it's mental. It's just way like really, really committing, really, really severe. The mountains just don't feel like they want you to be there. Whereas like when you're in like Ambleside, or when you're in Ambleside, when you're in like Langdale or something, the hills are just all like nice and green and grassy, and like they're rough
Yeah,
on top, but they kind of look like they look inviting. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, funny. We'll have to get you up to Scotland, mate, for
yeah, for sure.
before too long. Anyway, I think another bit that I was like really keen to chat about was like, did you have any like wild hallucinations, or have you got any like wild stories of like sleeping in public toilets or phone boxes, or like, or what, from the time you're out on the race?
Yeah, yeah. So, hallucinations in bucket loads, but the worst were, as you'd expect, coming into the, well, mid second day when I was death marching over Penny Ghent. And in fact, it was before that. It was on Fountains Fell, and I'd stopped. The pack had thinned out quite quickly by that point, so you're spending long periods by yourself. And I was coming up over there, and you've got like all the babies' heads and tufts of grass. And the first hallucination I had was the tufts of grass looked like little bush warriors, and they were moving around. And I'm looking up, and it's still daylight, and I'm looking up, and you know what it's like when you have those. It's not like you're under the influence of something, because your mind's like, I know I'm not seeing this, but I am absolutely seeing it. And there's all these little bush people like moving about on the hill. I'm like, what? And then it was all related to the grass, so I could see lizards running about in the grass. And then a little bit further over towards Pennygent, I saw what I it just looked like, it was the grass again. It looked like a VW camper van, and I was like, "What? This is not right." And then there was a lot of hearing stuff. I don't know if that's common for people, because you always get a lot about the visual stuff, but I always just can hear a lot of noise going off, and I'm never quite sure what it is, like people talking or shouting or kids screaming, and it like sort of moves around, like you can't pinpoint what it is. And that's the same thing I always tend to get.
Yeah, I definitely
um
get that as well.
and it's weird. um I think that was the worst of it. The rest of the time, the hallucinations weren't quite as severe, but there's just a lot of, can I actually see what I think I can see here? Um, so um, after coming out of Bellingham, you cut. you obviously cut north the whole time, but you cut through Reedsdale Forest, I think it is, and that's just some massive wooded blocks where you're on forestry roads, and this is about 1:30, 2 in the morning. That was heavy going because although we not long came out of the checkpoint, you're sort of fairly well fatigued off the collection of just not sleeping much for the entire week. And it's all straight roads, so there's no technical ground. You're on forestry tracks, so there's nothing to think about, occupy your mind. And I was with John, and we're just going along, like nodding off as you're walking, because it was so cold as well. Minus, I think did we say -10? No wind, so there's no wind chill, but everything was frozen solid. Like we took our backpacks off to eat
Yeah.
at a point, and our backpacks were just white and frozen solid.
Yeah.
And everything was crystallized, and just looking at everything, the trees, the grass, the trail, it was just like really trippy. And so about 2 o'clock in the morning, we walk around this corner, and there's just flashing lights like strobes. And I turned to John and said to him, "Mate, can I ask you a question? What the fuck am I looking at here?" And he looked, and I was like, "Seriously, can you see that?" I'm like, "That's definitely there." And we just didn't know what was going on. And as we got closer, it was a forestry wagon.
Oh,
But you know how like some of the wagon drivers pimp their wagons with different coloured lights and all
yeah,
that
yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
It wasn't just like normal lights going off. You had all these wild like LEDs and things. We were just like, what is going on here?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I just bushes that looked like there was one giant tree that looked like a dog as we got closer to it. And then as you walk past it, it was one of those pictures that as you move round it, um, doesn't it's made up of segments of something else.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
then I'm like, "John, are you seeing this? This looks like a dog, right?" And then as you're moving, it doesn't. And he's like, "Aye, I'm seeing that." And you're like, that's wild. And it was just I but yeah, definitely Penny Gent. That was the most severe hallucinations because I was completely by myself, and you're just trying to sort of like check your mind, and like I'm not seeing that, but I can see it moving and what's going on.
Yeah. No, that's epic. What an adventure. What an adventure. I'm jealous. I'm genuinely jealous.
I'd recommend it honestly. If as long as you're prepared for the how it's tough, it is tough, and that's how it's advertised, which undoubtedly you would be. It is just the most epic experience, I think. I took a lot more away from it than I had expected to. I think I went in with a time in mind that I wanted to crack it in, and that was what I was focused on. And all of the things that I took away from it were completely outside of that box, completely. I think I didn't come close to the time I wanted to crack it in. I think that was something I had to deal with on the ground and just be okay with that, because otherwise that would have ruined the experience. But honestly, all the participants, all of the volunteers, all of the like the general public along the route, the farms and everything that lay stuff on for you, it's just such an absolutely awesome experience. I'd recommend it to anybody.
That's amazing, mate.
Mate, so if you were to do it again, would you do another winter or would you do a summer?
I think it's a tough question. Thought about the summer, but I love the winter element of it. Like, so I know that the summer race would be tough for different reasons. Like, I probably I'd anticipate I probably had less issues with my feet for the winter version than you might in the summer with all the heat and blisters and what have you, as an example. But equally, when I saw the summer version run this year, and there was like photographs on the Montaigne page of like people just having a nice nap with their feet up on park benches in the villages and stuff, and I was like, no, I'm all in for the winter conditions because
It's
that
too
kind of
easy.
yeah. Well, I wouldn't say too easy by any stretch, but just the winter hardship, I was kind of like, that's where I have done all the training. The group, we've been out in all conditions. I'm prepped for that. That's going to be no factor. And that's what I'd be in for. So if I was to do it again, I'd love to go back for the winter version. And the weather's so changeable that it affects your speed massively, but I'd certainly be going back with a view to improve my time if possible, because I think I've got more in the tank.
Nice. And then following on from that, what's next?
I'm not going to say at the moment. I've got I've got some ideas. I've floated with my other half, um, which she's kind of provisionally agreed to, and then probably just need to have a chat with my coach and one or two people from the group as well, um, to make sure mainly that none of them say, yeah, that's a ridiculous idea. But yeah, watch this space. Keep my powder dry, I'm afraid.
I'm looking forward to finding out what that is. I'm going to text you. I'm going to text you straight after this and pester you.
Are me and Ben one of the ones in the group?
Well, likely you'd be heavily involved, I.
Oh, shit, what's on here? There we go.
Happy with that.
I'll make sure he's our first on the list to find out.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I'll take that to the bank. Hoofing, mate, it's been absolutely epic chatting. I think that's come to like a really nice conclusion, natural conclusion. So thanks very much for taking time to kind of unpack everything. That's been mega useful, and it's just been an absolute inspiration. And it's just great to see you doing it with a smile on your face, mate.
Oh, I just genuinely, that was I just loved the whole thing. It was just everything I thought it would be, and then so much more. I can't recommend it enough.
Yeah, epic, epic. Right, I think that's us. Chat to you both soon. Lovely chatting.
As always.
Thanks, gents.
Aye.
Appreciate it.
Hi, man.